All right, great. So I got a bunch of stuff to talk about tonight, and want to get your input and your feedback on it. So the first thing that I want to bring to this group is the importance of furthering education. Not only this program, but there's a ton of stuff out there that is available on the web now. I sent a few links. One of them is that Max Gardner thing. I love listening to lawyers speak. Um, I just spent 6 days. I think it was 5 or 6 days with John Heyer, and and I see Jay is on here. Jay, I could definitely use your input on this furthering education stuff. You can get so far so fast piggybacking off someone else's knowledge. Uh, you know, 4 years of college, it just never made sense to me. I think if I went to college to learn how to be a doctor, just compared to go in and just mess with some people and mess them up a little bit, you could learn how to be a doctor in about 2 months. No, I'm just kidding. But for certain things like lawyers and legalese and the language that they use and the things that you can do uh, legally, accounting practices. I'm not too hot on learning the legal tax issues, but that's why they have these CPAs that know everything, that they can just tell us what we should do and what we shouldn't do. So I just spent 6 days in a washing machine listening to and learning and thinking about all the stuff that John Heyer and Jeff Watson and Seth Rosenberg discussed about how to keep your money, how to become wealthy, what type of accounts you should own, what kind of, not really telling us what kind of deals we should do, but kind of telling us what kind of deals we could do inside your IRAs, real estate deals, Bitcoin, and all the different ways that people are making money out there, especially the note business. Um, the funny thing about a lot of people when they're actually discussing notes and real estate is they are one-off type of folks. There was one lawyer that came in who was a local lawyer in Puerto Rico, and he started to get it kind of close where he was talking about, because Jay brought it up, actually going to banks and forming relationships with banks, and doing things more on a one tape instead of one asset. Even though he had done a deal which was just one asset from a bank, once you do one or two with the bank and you build that relationship up, that's when the magic happens, and they start sending you 10 and 20 deals, and you figure out how to take 10 or 20 down instead of one or two. Um, a lot of the training that is out there, a lot of the financial friends network type of folks are just one-off type of buyers. And I learned this business from a Wall Street guy. He thought that having an office on Wall Street would attract money, which it did. And when you tell people that you're at 40 Wall Street, come on down and I'll give you a tour. I did. We went a few times to check the place out. And
Mike, were you talking about Giovanni, the attorney? The
yeah,
immigration attorney?
yeah, I like that guy.
No, so it was pretty cool. So yeah, no, he's so freaking connected. He knows the bank that we're dealing with. We went to go see a sixplex with a 6-story commercial building with a helipad on top of it last Saturday.
In
with
Old San Juan or where?
no, it was near the university. And because like Old San Juan is just so prohibitively expensive, so this would be definitely be a deal. I think they're, it was some kind of deal. They were asking like 2.8 million or something. I think it was originally 10, and we're probably going to offer like 500,000 and see what they say and go from there. We're actually going to put an offer in, I think either tomorrow or beginning of next week with some people that I met while I was here. Which to me, that's what was one of the cool things. You mentioned that they don't talk about what to invest in, but you do get to hear what other people are investing in. And then one of the gals that I met when I was here last year at John's event moved here from California, started a RIA, and she had people there last Saturday. And that's kind of how we went to go look at the sixplex, or six-story, whatever. And then she invited everybody from John's thing to her RIA last night. People are like looking at trying to buy, notes or real estate in Puerto Rico. And it just, it just kind of snowballs. It just kind of opens your eyes to see all kinds of different stuff that's out there. And then what you get from the education from John and, Seth and Jeff is how do you do it and keep your money? But it's just kind of makes the world that much bigger. That's why guys go to masterminds and and things like that. So it was really, it's just really cool being here. Oh, sorry, you're hearing the guys in the background. I'm just sitting on my balcony.
No, that's great. No, yeah. That's fantastic, man. The 6-day event, I don't want to shell out the money to do this, but I look at it, it's like it's freaking pennies on the dollar. Or it's basis points on the dollar if you look at what a $2,500 invoice is compared to. Well, I sit back and I think about how much I've made in, we've had 9 payoffs so far this year, which is pretty. I gotta say that's right up there with some of our best years. And that was during COVID. So the price of education is so minimal, but yet, our lousy programming that we had as kids, to think, boy, $2,500, I could get a lot of this or a lot of that with that. But then, and that's that pea brain talking. That's that small potatoes thinker that I grew up in that household. I won't deny that. Has such a huge influence on the decisions that we make. That small thinking that keeps us small. And I was just so enlightened. Because, we had attended the other event. Jay brought me into the other event down in Atlanta in March. And I was overwhelmed with the amount of information. And there were things in there that really caught my attention to say, oh, I already do that. Or, man, I'd really like to add that to my repertoire. And now hearing it again in July, so I've been chewing on this since March, the information that was given to me, and being too lazy to go back and listen and re-review the recordings that were given to me on that subject. Life happens. And so I didn't spend any time re-educating myself on that material. And now to hear it again over a 6-day period was really fantastic. Unfortunately, John Heyer said, I am never doing a 6-day event again. And I'm so fortunate to be a part of that education, because there's going to be some major changes for this country going forward. And that means that we need to make some major changes personally on the type of investments that we make, the way we, there's going to be some big changes for me. I never wanted to use other people's money to invest in this business. I always thought that what one of my students says, keep it small and keep it all. That was Gordon Moss. And we've always adhered to that. And we always would pat each other on the back to say, you know, I'm glad we did what we did, the way we did it. And I do not have any regrets for the way I did it so far up to this point. But now, after really reviewing where I think this country is headed with the note space, I think it's time to up the game a little bit and start a fund. And, you know, and then listening to all the different maneuvers that we can do from these lawyers that were, you know, insurance tactics and solo 401k tactics and buying stuff in your Roth and conversions and how to attract money with conversions and converting someone else's maybe a self-directed IRA into a Roth 401k or a Roth IRA, and taking a discount. It just so complex, but so really, like, once you hear it 10 times, it's not so complex anymore. So my point here tonight is, and I know that you already are in agreement that because you're on this call and you did sign up for this education program, you're not afraid to spend money on education. But don't make this a one-stop shop. There's so much more information out there that is kind of related to the note business, but it's more related to your retirement account, more related to your tactics that you take, and people that you meet, like Jay, you know, is in Puerto Rico at this event live. I live streamed it. I've got all kinds of stuff that I needed to attend to, and I wanted to get the whole event, and so he made that thing available live streaming, and I'm dying to get my hands on those recordings when they come out, because there's so many things I want to get back into. So my point is, there are so many lawyers out there making their information available, like that thing that Tom Nardone sent me on Max Gardner, which reintroduced me to Max Gardner, who is the bankruptcy attorney who teaches other bankruptcy attorneys how to make money and help their customers. You know, they're really not on our side, right? They're on the other side of the desk. The BK attorneys there's BK attorneys that are for the borrower, and there's BK attorneys for the creditor. Well, as note holders, we're the creditors. And so, and I do want to get a BK attorney on here in a month or so to discuss with us. I've got a good one who we're on a pretty good terms, who would be willing to come on here and speak to us at their view. I would love to get their view on where we're going, where this country is going in the next month or so. But back to Max Gardner, you know, this guy has events just like the one that we attended live streamer, what Jay is at right now. And these guys get together, and guys and girls, and they sit around and talk legal speak about bankruptcy. And I would love to be a fly on their wall. So Jay went to the website and found that the guy actually sells recordings of the topic that we're trying to look for. I just couldn't find the latest meeting that they had on COVID-related forbearance, and how once the moratorium is lifted, just how the borrowers are going to handle their modifications going forward for the people that took advantage of the forbearance program. We had one borrower who was way behind on their second mortgage that we owned, and their lawyer actually advised them. We were on a mediation call, and the lawyer said, well, you're being offered by Wells Fargo a 12-month, I think it was, maybe a 12 or a 14-month forbearance plan where they would just take that money and roll it to the back of the loan. So this is their lawyer. We were just sitting there with our mouths shut, trying to figure out how they were going to reinstate our mortgage. And this lawyer said, why don't you take that $1,100 that you pay to the first mortgage every month, take advantage of this forbearance, and use that $1,100 for the next 12 months to come up with that $13,000 to reinstate us, to bring us current, and then we'll make 3 years of $400 a month payments, and at the end of 3 years, you will have a balance of $45,000. You can refinance everything and pay us off the 45 in 3 years. Well, it's already been the 12 months, and we've received the 3 of the 36 payments, and that was all because of the the forbearance agreement. And so we got off the mediation, and I called up, I was still on the hook with the our attorney, and I said, do you think this can go wrongly in our favor? Because he says, how do you know they aren't affected by COVID? How do you know they are not adversely affected by COVID? They are taking advantage of a government program that is available to them. And so we did the deal. But anyway, point being that there's just a ton of information out there that I want to get my hands on to see how things are going to go forward with the bankruptcies in this country. We are already double the amount of people that are in forbearance, or should I just say they are not paying their mortgage, double the amount of what is typically normal because of COVID. So it remains to be seen how the servicers are actually going to be able to handle this crunch of debt. We've already seen one tape where every loan in there was delinquent as of March of 2020. So some of those loans that were on that tape were actually delinquent in 2019, and then they just continued to be delinquent in 2020 and 21. And this was a tape, I believe there was a 54 mixed. It was mixed first and seconds. And so that was my first COVID peak at a tape where the bank said, you know what, we'll take 80 cents on a dollar for these. They're not really that defaulted. And so we think 80 cents is a fair number. They had been collecting on these loans for 4 or 5 years so far. These loans were written 13, 14, 15 was the origination dates. So they've gotten 3, 4, and 5 years worth of payments out of them. And now they were willing to accept 80 cents on those notes. If you got that portfolio performing, which I believe you would be pretty, there was equity there. These were fresh new loans. And I think if you got that thing performing, you could probably get maybe with the discount at 80 cents, you might get a 12 or a 14 yield, something like that. It's getting a hold of the arrears that is going to be the tricky part. But I guess they just didn't feel like doing the workout. They didn't feel like contacting the borrowers, or maybe they tried to contact the borrowers and could not come to an agreement because the moratorium was still in place. So yeah, there's a ton of information out there, and a lot of it is the legal end or the legalese on this new period that we're moving into when they lift the ban. Now, has anybody heard? I know that the Biden administration was talking about extending the forbearance plan. Has anybody heard any new news on that?
I don't think it was forbearance. The news came out today. It was for eviction. They're requesting, the Biden administration was requesting the Congress to extend the eviction moratorium.
Extending the eviction moratorium.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, that was the big headline I read too.
Okay. Yeah, I did hear something on the radio. So what do you think, man?
It's until 7:45. I'm
We'll just keep an eye on the radar. I don't want to get blown away. Yeah, I'm just curious about, the evictions. I mean, how can they extend that? It's
Well, the good news is he's asking Congress to do it. So, I mean, Congress will probably pass it. Do an emergency session and pass it, but the Senate won't do it. But since the Supreme Court, since courts have already ruled that it's unconstitutional, it might not get a lot of traction.
okay.
And that's kind of the way I'm looking at it. But, wow.
It's huge. I mean, it's unprecedented. And, I think we're, I don't know. I don't want to get started, but I think we're going to see a wave of non-performing notes like nobody's business. And we just want to be prepared. So furthering education, I think that now it's very important for everyone on this call to get as much training, get as much education, and circle the wagons as best we can. I know that you guys are connecting with each other, which is fantastic, but I think there needs to be more connecting and teaming up and figuring out who's going to take what action to really start working together on these notes, whether it's people in this group with each other. I would love to see subgroups being formed where you guys are meeting on your own, having your own Zoom calls, having your own Zoom rooms. Take some initiative, if you haven't already, to actually execute on that. Implementation is the hardest thing when it comes to getting something done. It's like taking that first step, or it's like the fear of asking a stupid question. I asked a couple of questions on this this webinar thing, and this guy can be pretty hard on you. It's pretty funny in a funny way, but I didn't care. I had a question. I wanted to hear the answer, and one of them was the employee retention tax credit. Do I have that right, Jay?
Yes. Yeah, that was kind of, I didn't pay a whole lot of attention because man, I don't have a lot of employees, but a lot of the CPAs that were in the class were just really, they were so excited because they all have clients with employees, and they're like, oh man, what a nuggets of just great information for me and my clients.
Well, if you are, and I don't think my question really got answered, but he's saying this is the best
okay.
time to start something, to start a company that you don't currently have, right?
Right.
So I'm like, well, let's apply it to a fund. If I started a hedge fund tomorrow and there's 3 partners in this hedge fund, could they not all draw a salary on an S corp from the fund, and we are the employees in the fund? I mean, I don't know what part he didn't get on that with my question, but
Yeah, I think more of a Rob's structure or rollover business startup for those of you that aren't familiar with that structure. But I'm actually meeting with John on Saturday, and I will actually ask a follow-up,
okay.
find that out.
I think it's perfect. You know, the way he was describing things was, you start a fund, you've got 3 members. These 3 members are paid by the company, draw a salary, $30,000 a year, whatever it is, 40 grand. And that will qualify you for that tax credit, the way I look at it. If I was understanding what he was describing. So that needs to be looked into. But further education in general, I came up with that other website that I sent you guys all a link to, that estate planner. That has some fantastic recordings for $150. And I don't know, maybe I can buy those things and start a library or something for the fast track students. I don't know if that would be permissible or not, but yeah, some fantastic information out there. All right. So Jay, is there anything you wanted to add that we should be talking about here from all the brain melt that you had for the last 6 days?
Yes, there is, but like you just said, brain melt, man.
I know.
It'll take me a couple of days to decompress and look at my notes.
Exactly. Definitely got to sort it out. Definitely got to sort it out.
Yeah, like I have probably 30 action items just from hearing this, and I've heard most of this probably 3 or 4 times, and I don't know if I'm just slow on the uptake or what, but every time I hear it, it's like, wait a second, I think this might work for our type of business for notes. So there's a whole lot to unpack. I'm just so happy I made it down here.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's great. So I'll talk to you about that offline, about that RIA that's down there. I just had a few questions about that. So at this point, does anybody have any questions or anything that you would like to bring up to me, and things that you're struggling with, or, you know, I'm assuming that I shouldn't assume, but I just wanted to make this offering. Is there anyone that would like for me to give what little knowledge I do have on self-directed IRAs? I just want to make sure that everyone is covered with that information. Does someone maybe who doesn't have an IRA or who just opened one up and they want to know how to get that thing going. Is there anyone that has any questions about that? Now, I've had an IRA opened up. Like I said, I met my mentor in March of 2007, and I had $100,000 in a 401k from my old employer. And it was just sitting there. I didn't have it in mutual funds. I just put it into money market and it just sat there. And I felt good about that, but I didn't know how to access it. And so this guy was saying, you know, buy this note for 30 grand, or buy this note for 40 grand. I'm like, well, I got the money. I just don't know how to get it. So all he said was just Google self-directed IRAs. You know, he didn't know much about it himself. And so he knew that I would research the heck out of it, which I did. And I went to Equity Trust website. They were the biggest at the time. I think they still are. Custodian out there. And they had a fantastic website. I think they still do. It's called trustetc.com. And their website was so informative. And let me just check this radar here. It's getting real quiet. They had a fantastic website, and I became familiar with every type of investment that I could make inside of a self-directed IRA. And every form that they used to get the money out of the IRA and over to whoever needed to get it to get the deal going. And I became somewhat of an expert compared to everyone else that was on that call. And I loved it. And I rolled my 100 grand out of the 401k into this vehicle, into the self-directed IRA. And I realized real quickly that I could not fund these deals the way this guy wanted to be funded. So the way it worked was, you'd look at a deal, you would put in a slip and say, hey, I'd like more information on number 11. So then they would send you a little bit more information. They would not send you or give you access to the collateral file, but they would give you more information. They would give you a peek at the credit report. They would give you the address, and you know, it was kind of like a blind tape in the beginning, and then they would give you more access. And then after you saw that information, you had to act quickly or else someone else would buy that thing out in front of you. And so I had to fund this thing. I like it. You know what? I negotiated a price, and a note that we just got paid off on last month was one of those notes, one of those first notes that I bought in 2008. Just got paid off on that thing after collecting 11 years worth of $250 a month. And she finally just refinanced her house and paid me off in full. But she asked me for a $5,000 discount, and I gave it to her. So anyway, I could not fund these deals quickly because my custodian wanted to see the note. They wanted to see the mortgage. They wanted to see the origination date. They wanted to see the maturity date. They wanted to see what the monthly payment was and this and that. And I didn't have that kind of time. So I looked at all the different forms that Equity Trust had available. And I said, you know what? I will draw this thing up as a loan to my mentor. I would give them, I don't know, maybe a 3% or a 4% interest rate on the loan. And then they would send over, for the $6,500 that I paid for that loan that I just told you about, I would take out a loan for, no, I'd give him a loan for $6,500 or $56, I think it was, something. And then in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, I would receive the collateral file. And then I would do a substitution of collateral. So now I've got this $6,500 note, and send that to them as substitution of collateral. And now the note sat in my IRA, and the deal was done. So the loan was paid off. I satisfied the loan with the substitution of collateral with this new note. And I did that for a couple of years. And it worked out fine, but it was just a workaround that no one else had ever told me to do that or anything. So that was my start of a self-directed IRA back in 2007. And then I got a little more sophisticated, and I got a hold of Jack Shea. Jack Shea is a big supporter of trusts. And so my trust now owns, my IRA now owns my trust, and I have checkbook control. And now I just opened up a Roth IRA, and now I need to open up a trust for my Roth IRA so that I can start doing deals inside of there. And now I just learned that I can roll some of the notes that I own in my traditional IRA over to my Roth IRA at a discount that I purchased them at. I learned that on the John Heyer call. And get those non-performing notes that are in my traditional over into my Roth so that they have a very low basis on my purchase price, and then I can grow my Roth exponentially, completely tax-free. So if anybody wants more information about a self-directed IRA, how to open one or anything, just give me a shout and or unmute or write in the chat or something, and we can talk further. Okay, so Brian asks, how do you hedge against early payoff on your note? Your ROI changes because you got paid earlier than you might have to go into the market at a lower interest rate. Okay, so great question. I am looking for the velocity of capital. So this note that I got paid off on last month was one of the first notes I bought. And the borrower, I got in touch with the borrower, long story short. What do you got?
2 tornadoes hit Bucks County.
2 tornadoes?
There's another tornado warning for Bucks County, Philadelphia, Burlington County, New Jersey,
Burlington. Yes, that's far away.
until 7:40. Okay.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. It's 7:40 now. So I bought the note for $5,600. I contacted the borrower. Borrower didn't believe who I was. Ended up getting an attorney. I found out later, she actually works for the Denver County Clerk's office, which is ironic because that's where her mortgage and her assignment is and all that good stuff. And she just didn't believe that this was a PNC note, that PNC would sell a note to me, which they did. So the lawyer calls me up without the borrower on the phone, and he's like, so what can you do for this borrower? Well, I was new to this thing. I said, listen, give me $3,500. If she gives me $3,500, I will waive the arrears. I think there was about $7,000 worth of arrears there. I will waive the other $3,500. I can lower her monthly payment from $425 or $450 down to $250 a month, which would lower her interest rate. He goes, you're making me look like a genius. I'm like, yeah, go for it. So that's what we did. $3,500 downstroke, $250 a month. She's been paying me $250 a month because her interest rate was 2.4%. Or 3.2, it was ridiculous interest rate. She loved me, and she loved this loan because she could afford $250 a month. The $425 was killing her. So this lawyer is like friending me on LinkedIn now, which was pretty funny. And I'm getting this cash flow. Well, Brian, if I had gotten 10 grand out of her on a $5,600 purchase 11 years ago, I could have done a lot more damage than I did with $250 a month for the last 11 years. So I'm looking for a fast payoff. That is the velocity of money. If you can get your money, you pay $2,500 and next week you get $5,000. Would you do that? Because your return on investment in 1 week, okay, so it's 100% return, but that's over a year. If you do 100% return in a week or a month, that exponentially increases your return because you can turn around and get that money back out and buy another loan or buy 2 loans now. So we never worry about early payoffs. That is in our favor. It's all about the discount. And that loan, I bought a $51,000 UPB for $5,600. And so you got to figure I received 11 years of $250 a month. So that's over $25,000 plus the $3,000 up front. But it took 11 years to get my hands on that money. And then I just got a refi payoff for $35,000. So, or $30,000 she asked me for a $5,000 discount and I gave it to her. So the velocity of money is how we operate. Now, if you're looking to grow slow, and really receive, but I had chopped her interest rate just to get this lady to perform for me. So it's a lot different than loaning someone out the $51,000 or $56,000, whatever it is, and then with real $56,000 money. So you got to figure that my mentor bought that note. If he sold it to me for $5,600, I knew that the day that I bought that loan off of him, he had sent out, and I do want to discuss this too, the question of who are you buying these loans from and what's their motive for selling. So you can imagine back in the day when I was learning this business, we were doing I was getting a lot of emails from this guy. Every time he was going to buy another pool, or at least he said he was going to buy another pool, he would send out an email blast to do a capital raise. And so what he was doing was he was creating a bunch of note investors, and this is brilliant. I learned this from him. He was creating a pool of note investors, and I was one of them. And then he would say, you know what? Give me $50,000 and I'll give you an 8% or a 12% return. And then on that $50,000, as you see a note, you can draw down the purchase price of that note from the $50,000. And now you're not going to get an 8% return on the 50. Now you're only going to get a return on 30,000 because it was 20,000 to buy that note. So we loved it. We all loved it. And he loved it too, because he was trading UPB for real money, meaning I had to give him 50 real money. And then he was coming back to us and giving us crappy paper. He was giving us unpaid principal balance. He was trading real 50,000 for what I call possible collateral, possible return. And so he was brilliant. He was getting his hands on real money so he could deal with banks and giving us unpaid principal balance, which, if you really think about it, at the time of purchase, a non-performing junior lien is really garbage. You know, if you talk to an unsophisticated investor, they'll tell you that that is probably one of the worst investments you could make. And, and, you know, prior to my education, I would have believed him. I would have believed you saying, yeah, a non-performing second mortgage. My God, why would you ever buy that? And now that's all I buy. And that was how it started. So anyway, he would send out an email, hey, capital needed 24 hours. And then he would state the return from 50 to $150,000. I'll give you 8%. If you give me $1 million, I'll give you 20%. And there were some people that fell for it and were getting a 20% return on $1 million. Well, let me tell you what, that's a ship that ain't going to float for long, because he was coming up with some big money interest payments. And I think before the whole thing went kaplooey, maybe it lasted 9 months to a year before the whole thing blew up. And why he was offering 20% is beyond me, because people were ecstatic at getting 10%. But he needed that money fast. He needed to do these deals, and so that's how it happened. Anyway, he would send out an email doing this capital raise. Now, that note that I'm telling you about, that Denver note, was on his website for $15,000. And as soon as he would send out a capital raise email, I said, hey, you know what? I'll give you $5,600 for that note. He's like, you know what? I'll take it. Because I knew the motivation that he had was he needed cash. Now, if he paid $5,600 for that note, he probably paid $2 for it, because that's just, you know, how the business was. And so that's who you buy from is so important, but knowing why they're selling is huge. There was another guy who has a fund who's still in the business today, great guy. And he used to send me a personal Christmas card, and then he would send me a business Christmas card. And on the business Christmas card, it was a picture of him and his employees. And so we were chatting away. I think it was around Thanksgiving or something. And he's like, hey, I got these 12 notes. And, oh, cool. Yeah, send them over. I'll check them out. So in the process of him talking to me, he was telling me that he wanted to get his 6 new employees a self-directed IRA. He wanted to start them up and put, I don't know, $2,000 or no, maybe it was more like $5,000 in it. That was going to be their Christmas bonus. So open up an IRA and then fund it with $5,000, which was freaking awesome. So I'm looking at these notes that he sent me, and he wanted to take his wife on a vacation for Christmas. A weekend, just a weekend up in the mountains in California. So I'm looking at these notes. I'm like, I wonder what he wants for these things. I'm like, wait a minute. I went and I got that Christmas card out, and I counted up how many employees he's got. All right, so he's got 6 employees, and he wants to start up an IRA. So that's $30,000. He's going to fund it. You got to figure it's going to cost another $1,000 for the opening of the account. Let's just round it out. So that's $36,000. And then he wants to take his wife on vacation. So let's make an offer of $42,000. And this was not about the unpaid principal balance. This was not about the credit reports. Everything looked fine. The tape was fine. This was about what he needed. And, it was an offer of 41 or 42,000 bucks. And I called him up. I said, how about 42 grand? He goes, perfect. It was almost like he was saying, how did you know? That's what I needed. And we did the trade. They were fantastic notes. And I knew his motivation. He clearly told me how much he needed for those notes. So know the person you're buying from. Very important. Know what they're up to. Know what they're busy. Are they buying a pool right now? If they are, great. They need capital. Probably don't know how much capital the way I did with the Christmas card. But those two things stuck out in my mind because those were two purchases that really worked out for me by knowing the seller, not the UPB, not the credit report, not the due diligence, not the location of the house, but knowing the seller. And when you get these banks on the phone and you're talking to them, find their pain, find what's hurting them financially, find out what's hurting them time-wise, where are they spending a lot of time, where are they wasting a lot of time. And people will tell you what they're up to. People like to talk about what they're up to. And this guy was pretty proud that he was opening up these IRAs for his employees, and he knew that I would appreciate that because I'm all for that kind of stuff. And so you can glean a lot of information out of people if you're really paying attention. So yeah, early payoffs are fine, Brian. It's all about the velocity of money. Get that money back. I mean, if this woman would have given me, I paid $5,600 for the note. I got 3,000 back. So now I'm really into this note for $2,600. And now all I really need, and I think that's why I came up with $250 a month. I'm like, in 1 year, I'll have all my money back. And now I've got another 29 years of her making payments, which is all gravy, which is all infinite money. So that's the story there. And it's a model that works. Trust me, it works fantastic. Okay, so what about infinite banking? Well, that was actually the course today. Was a 2 or 3 hour segment on infinite banking. And so what John Heyer alludes to very adamantly is there are priorities for the types of accounts that we should fund first. The importance of funding these types of accounts first. In his mind, and I agree with all this information, just so you know, and I think Jay does too. The first thing that you should be funding is a solo 401k, some type of 401k. You can jam $60,000 or $70,000 a year into that thing. It is the most versatile of all types of Roth investing. A Roth 401k. Versatile meaning I can't borrow from my self-directed traditional IRA or my traditional IRA. I just can't borrow from it. I can take money out. Now that I'm 59 and a half, I can take it out without a penalty, but I do have to pay taxes. Prior to 59 and a half, I had to pay a fee, which I did several times because I was broke when I was self-unemployed. So the first thing he says is fill up your solo 401k, 60 or 70,000 bucks there. The next thing you fill up is, and Jay, I know that you've been listening to this material more than I have. Just correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the next thing you should fill up is your self-directed Roth IRA. There you can get 6,000 or 7,000 bucks into that thing, depending on your age. And then you want to fill up a traditional IRA. Is that right?
It was either the traditional or the HSA at that point, because I don't know if you could do both.
That's right. You can't do both. You can only do one. Thank you for that. Yeah. So then you go to your HSA health savings account, and you can load that up with, I think, 3,500 bucks. I don't have one, so I can't speak to that. And then last but least, I believe, is your life insurance policy for your infinite banking. If you still have money left over. So you got 70,000 in your 401k, and then you got another 6,000 or 7,000 in your Roth IRA. So that's 76,000. And then you've got your HSA, which is 35. It used to be 3,500 bucks, I think. So that now you're up to almost 80 grand. And if you still got money left over, by all means, go ahead and fill up your infinite bank. Fill up your insurance premium with that. And I don't know much about it because I don't have one of those either. And I haven't gotten to the point where I can jam that much money away to go down the ladder in priorities from the solo 401k all the way down to the infinite banking. Jay, you got anything to add on that? Or anybody? I know Dave's got a solo 401k, and Sachin has one. I think Tom is looking to open one right now.
Yes, I don't know if you want me to repeat kind of what I told you about a certain company.
Oh yeah, no, we can do that offline.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, they're opinions of one of the custodians that are out there. But Tom, are you there? Did you have something to add?
No, sorry, I'm a little distracted. My son and his wife just had a baby.
Woo,
And,
congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. It was a girl. And
Nice.
I'm getting bombed with texts right now. So that's pretty cool.
It's 8
Cool.
o'clock.
Oh, it's 8:00.
Yeah, it's 8 o'clock. As far as, I was in fact, it was on my list to do today. I was going to open up a 401 with Rocket Dollar. Has anybody here ever used Rocket Dollar for a solo K?
Never heard of it.
No, are they a self-directed custodian, or is it like a checkbook style, Tom?
It's they specialize in crypto, and I want to use it for real estate, probably even more than crypto. And I don't know what's written into the operating agreements or whatever the agreements are that follow along with a solo 401k, but they seem to be very crypto friendly. If you go on YouTube and you watch, just type in Rocket Dollar and watch some of their some of the YouTube videos. So does anybody here do any crypto investments in a tax-free environment?
Not tax-free.
No. Okay.
Not me.
Just curious.
Me. Regular money.
Yeah. Well, I would just stay on topic with what you were talking about, Mike. All I have is a self-directed Roth IRA, and I only opened that like 2.5 years ago, but I've been investing in it pretty heavily, and it's doing really, really well.
Nice.
But the one thing that bugs me is the UBIT possibilities, or being accused of UBIT. So we're very careful, and we know where the line is, and we never cross the line. But I thought if I had a second vehicle, which would be the solo 401, then I can do real estate deals in there. And from what I understand, UBIT is a lot less of a challenge if the IRS ever wants to make a challenge of it.
I believe so.
Yeah, Tom. So yeah, I can talk to you about that. So I don't know if it's any more of a hurdle it's, UBIT in a self-directed 401k or an IRA. I thought, I could be wrong, but I think it's the same thresholds or just kind of things that would trigger it. But that being said, I could absolutely talk you through how to minimize it, because don't let that be a what's causing you to not move forward with your investments. I mean, there's ways to minimize that where, and then if you think about it, it's really not a bad thing if you're doing something that's getting you those kind of returns that gets you UBIT, because you only pay it once. But if you knew you could minimize it down, reduce like 80% of it, you do it in a heartbeat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can definitely show you how to do that. That's for sure.
And you do that in the solo 401k?
Yeah, you can do it in the solo 401k. I think you can do it in the Roth IRA as well.
Okay, and everything I do in the Roth IRA, I do with joint venture agreements. So the other people that have money into the deals along with me have a little piece of the action, a little piece of the ownership. So we really get our paperwork straight about how it looks, formally on paper. It's like,
Are you paying them like an interest rate plus equity?
yeah, it's an interest rate. It's mostly interest rate driven, to be honest with you. It's a rate in points, but they do get an ownership in the property, and there is no note and mortgage. So if it were ever dragged into a courtroom and challenged by the IRS, maybe they could try to poke some holes through it and say, well, we see that as a loan, and even though there wasn't a note and mortgage, we're going to charge you. But I guess anything could happen, right? So there is no solid, concrete way to keep from, being accused of something, I guess.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's no way to be stop from being accused of anything, but what you can do is you can make yourself, instead of an easy target, you can make yourself a lot tougher target where they're going to want to look elsewhere, because if what you're doing is legal, then unless they just flat out don't like you or something like that, they'll just leave you alone, because they got so many ones that are people doing stuff that's illegal. But that being said, so UBIT isn't just on leverage capital, because if you're doing leverage capital, for real estate, there is no UBIT on that. That's not what triggers it. What triggers it is running a business. And I don't know if that was your issue or not.
And well, where is the line with running a business as opposed to an investment?
Yeah. So
How many deals you do?
Right. But there's no, and then the next question is how many deals? And then the answer is there is no number. So it's kind of your overall situation. I mean, that's definitely can you paint a picture? So let's just assume that you're running a business and you're subject to UBIT, because just for conversation's sake, right? I can show you how to minimize it. Say you borrow $1 million from somebody to do a deal, you're going to, and whatever your gain is, you're going to owe UBIT on that $1 million of leverage capital, because whatever the gain is, because of the UBIT on the running a business, not because you use leverage capital to buy real estate, because that's exempt. But I can show you how to minimize that, especially if you're borrowing. That's actually part of the program is the way to do it. And I just I don't want to get too far into it, but it's something I'll happy to talk about with you offline.
Sure. Yeah. Well,
but I can definitely walk you through it.
Yeah, I'll shoot you an email, see what time works good for you. I appreciate that, Jay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, you were mentioning volume of transactions, and not being a business. If you do a half dozen a year, is that like
Well,
is that overkill?
that's what Hire was saying was it's the consistency. If you do 6 a year, there was one guy saying I do 2 flips a year. That's not really a business. That's not.
Well, but it's right. But so let me play devil's advocate for what you just said. But if you're doing 2 flips a year and they're $5 million flips, maybe that's a different narrative, right?
Absolutely. Yeah,
So,
that's what I love about all this is all this grayness. There's all this grayness. Well, when do I trip the trigger? Oh, I don't know.
right. And that's the saying goes: if it's gray, we play.
I love it. I mean, that's why I get so excited when I think about and hearing other people's deals.
Yeah, I mean, in the note world, notes are so interchangeable or exchangeable. It's not like physical real estate that tends to slow you down, right? The notes you can trade back and forth or buy, and would 6 note deals a year be a business? I would say no.
Well, if they're $2 million a piece,
It depends.
yeah, and you're getting some huge brokering fees. The nicest, I would have to say the nicest thing about the note business compared to real estate, other than having to actually physically work, is the fact that there's how much I paid for the note is not listed anywhere. It's a private contract, private transaction. I used to go into work in a machine shop. I started buying houses in 99 while I was still employed. And this one guy that I worked with, he's like, I see you bought another house. I think by the time I quit my job, I had 7 houses. I had a great credit score and I was able to use conventional financing. And this guy used to, I go into the lunchroom. He's like, I see you bought another house. I'm like, how do you know? It's like, it's in the paper. I'm like, it's in the paper? I didn't know that. And, imagine, if that was really the story in the note business. Hey, I see you bought 200 notes the other day, like for 30 cents on a dollar. We'd be toast. But with real estate, it's public knowledge that you bought it for 130 and you flipped it for 210. You can see it right on Zillow in the history. So I've found that to be and nobody talks about that, a very important part of the note business.
Mm-hmm.
It's
like something you said earlier kind of triggered me, and so I have to lodge a complaint and tell you how you triggered me. You're talking about buying these buying a note for whatever, say $5,000, and they got a $50,000 balance, then modifying the terms and conditions and lowering their payment from $400 down to $250 and things like that. And it kind of had a memory of, and I was just kind of remembering why I typically don't modify terms and conditions of the loan to get people to reperform. I make them stick to the terms and conditions that were on the note. And I hope I'm still right, but back in the day, I remember it was the phantom income rule, because the second you modify that loan, you get it reperforming, and there's a $56,000 balance, and you bought it for $5,000, you just got a $45,000 gain that you owe tax on. And I was doing a bunch of research. Some of my investors were telling me, well, we're afraid of this, and we have to pay this, and they had Arthur Andersen advising them. And so I went and did my own research, and I found some exceptions to that. And the exception was, I think if it was considered higher risk, if you're buying it at such a big discount, it was higher risk. And there was like a kind of a multi-part test.
Mhm.
And one of the other tests was if you did not modify the terms and conditions of it, but simply reinstated, you were not absolved of the Phantom Menace, but you were on solid ground for not treating it as such. And that was why I never did it. And I argued with these guys. I was arguing with Arthur Anderson. I'm just, being pretty blunt. I told them they were idiots. And, they were wrong, and they needed to go, talk to somebody or talk to an aggressive tax attorney. And, they didn't want to hear it because, what do I know? But I was right.
I concur.
Yeah.
Yep, I concur because that's the way I was taught. That it's just the way I was taught. The way I've never really paid.
And if you're doing your IRA, it doesn't matter because there is no tax to pay.
No tax to pay.
Right. It's but weird. I wasn't doing them in the IRA, so I didn't have that advantage.
But you did open up your solo 401k, right, Jay?
Oh yeah, like everything I'm doing now, I'm stuffing in that 401k, and like if anybody wants to hear about it, we can tell you how to stuff $1 million into your Roth solo 401k instantly.
That was really cool. He goes, I knew about this 15 years ago, but there was no case law. And so I didn't want to be the first guinea pig.
Right.
That's great. I mean, that was great. But no, I freaking learned a lot, man.
Yeah, no, there's a million ways to skin a cat. I mean, it's just, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he was even talking about a case law where the guy had commingled funds to do what you're doing, Tom, working on buildings or houses or whatever in their IRA. And they commingled funds for one reason or another. I couldn't remember exactly where or what he ended up buying the kitchen cabinets or something with his own money. And the kitchen cabinets cost 20 grand. So the IRS just treated it as an overage,
Excess contribution
to the IRA of this extra 20,000. And all you have to do is pay 6% on that 20,000, which is $1,200.
How would they ever even find out?
That's kind of always the trick. I mean, if you get audited.
Yeah. I mean,
But anyway, that was the case law that the IRS says, no, that didn't blow up your IRA. All you did was overfund the excess contribution. So that kind of got John Heyer thinking. It's like, well, what if I throw $1 million into my IRA? Do I just pay 6%? Do I just pay $60,000 and try to make up and in excess of my investments, just make more than 6% on my investments going forward? I just jammed $1 million into fund that extra million into that IRA. Now, is that just for IRAs, Jay, or is that for 401ks also?
Actually, my understanding was it was for 401ks, but it could be for IRAs as well. So maybe we both got our signals crossed.
Yeah. So Bill, you'd love to do it. So just look up excess contribution fees for your solo 401k. And you'll see, and John Heyer's like, I would love for one of you guys to do this, and you get caught doing it. He goes, I've got case law that case studies that we can just go back to them. And he goes, if anybody's brave enough to do it, I'll gladly take it to court with you, whatever you call that. It's pretty exciting. Let's see, I get chats here.
hey, Mike, what would you say was your top 2 takeaways from listening to all those days of John Heyer?
Well, it's, and like Jay said, I really have to sit back and digest it. And I think just what we just talked about now, stuffing $1 million into something, you know, that would be huge. I think this employee retention tax credit needs to be really explored, because if he's saying the best time to build a business is now, hey, I'm ready. I'm ready to build another business, something I haven't done yet so far. So that I really want to look at hard, because you're talking about having these tax credits and you can sell them. Oh my God, man, just all this ridiculousness. And it just you just have to decide what rabbit hole you're going to go down first. Do I really want to learn about how to stuff $1 million into my IRA? Yeah, I do. Do I really want to open up a solo 401k using this guy, Seth, who has all the bells and whistles, who sounds like one of the smartest people that I have ever listened to in my life? Like, oh my God, man, this guy just is insanely smart. I would love to have that guy on my side. Other things, you know, it's just still too fresh in my mind to even to discuss it yet. But you'll hear from it. You'll hear from me in the next couple of weeks as I get a hold of those recordings and go through it again, because it just spews out of them. It's just blah, 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 you know, and then it's 4:00. It's like, what the heck was that all about? And I really tried to make believe that I was in the room and not being distracted by tornadoes and thunderstorms or anything, but I was really just in that room. And it's hard to sit still when you're in your own environment. So I ended up going to the beach and just sitting on a beach chair and listening to this stuff. That was the easiest way for me to absorb and not be distracted by emails and computers and things.
Mm-hmm.
So it was fantastic, man. It was the best two grand I ever spent, or whatever it was. Very cool. I love the idea that people are now streaming these things instead of forcing you to go.
Hey, Mike, were they only offering to set up safe harbor entities, or were they offering to do just like regular solo 401ks also?
Yeah, so I actually asked that question for you because I was talking to you the other day, and they were opened it up for questioning. And Seth said that he actually does not open safe harbors anymore. But he has some other thing, and Jay can speak on this too, some other thing that gets you out of triggering a lot of audits. So what do you got for that, Jay?
Yeah, so he doesn't call it a safe harbor. It's a it's a 401k, and what he does is he actually does make an individualized plan for everybody, for their for their solo, or even if it's a company. So it's Tom, I don't know whether you're looking for a solo or for a company, but either or. Some of the provisions, and I can tell you some of the stuff that I thought was important to me, was I asked him for the safe harbor, and he's like, well, you don't really need to call it that because you don't have employees, but we can offer you the same type of protections. And what I really wanted were the protections of it being an ERISA plan, which is protected by federal law. So let's say I do something naughty that within my solo 401k that triggers an audit and UBIT, and I'm filing my UBIT returns, and they don't like it, and they still go ahead and audit me. And it's like, and then they say, okay, well, great. Well, you owe us, X or whatever. So I go, well, great. I disagree, and have John Heyer represent me. We go to tax court, and let's say we lose and they get tax, because tax court, if you take it all the way, it's pretty well stacked against you. They control it. I think they probably win 95% of their cases, that they try. And they say, okay, well, now, you owe us $1 million. And it's like, okay, great, go get it. And the cool thing about an ERISA plan is that they can't just, even though they have a judgment from tax court, they can't just take it. They have to go to federal court where you have rights, and they have to convince a jury of your peers and a sitting federal judge that you broke the law and you owe this money before they can get to it, which is a huge thing. And Seth's like, you don't need this. And I'm like, no, Jay want. And so I went with him and put it together. And you know what? Am I ever going to need that? Probably not. But guess what? I'd rather make it, for $3,000 a year. I mean, I'd rather make it, really, really difficult for them to come get me, because how do you think they're going to fund the communist government by other than going after people like us? And it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. So I thought I would think 20 years ahead and protect myself now, because they're coming for all of us.
It's like what John says. I love this, Jay, right? He goes, he says, two guys are walking in the woods and a bear comes up. He says, you don't have to outrun the bear. You just have to outrun the other guy. So they're going to go for the low hanging fruit, I think was his point. And if you got a nice big fat IRA or Roth, whatever, and it's fat and juicy, and they see that you've got this federal protection going on, that's just going to say, you know what, let's just go on to the next one. There's people out there that pay $100 a year for their IRA, and we're talking about filling this thing up with some serious capital.
Yeah, like they might go to some company that just does like a generic plan for everybody, and it's got, so full of holes like Swiss cheese. They're like, oh yeah, we can pierce this.
Yep.
There we go.
So you don't have to outrun the bear. You just have to outrun the guy that you're hiking with.
Yeah.
So what is higher charge for just like a standard 401k? Or were they leading everyone to believe that don't even consider doing that, just go full blown with the
Not at all. Not at all. This is the world according to Jay. This is me being paranoid, whatever you want to call it. I mean, Seth even did the takeaway with me. Jay, you do not need this. This is complete overkill. So I said, I don't care. I want it. It's like chasing a girl or a guy or whatever whatever you like. If they don't want you, it's like you want it even more. So no, absolutely not. So like John will tell you, if you want to do a self-directed, you need a checkbook IRA, you need a custodian, go to Solera Bank. They charge you $100 a year, I think. I mean, that's it. And that's actually who I'm going to go to open my accounts. Now, I guess for the custodian, I mean, you can go with, who was there this week as a sponsor?
Quest.
Quest. Yeah. I mean, you can go with somebody like that. I mean, I don't know how much they are. I don't think they're very expensive. There's plenty of companies you can go with that are not expensive, and and if it's overkill, I mean, and you don't believe in overkill, don't do overkill. So no, absolutely, they were not pushing anything. That's just the world according to Jay. Sorry.
So all the accounts they open up are through Solera?
No, they don't open up any accounts for you. You open the accounts wherever you want to open them. That's just like, so Seth's company just does the plan documents and administers the plan for you. It's just like kind of like Equity Trust, except it's completely self-directed. You need to get your own bank accounts. He just does the plan for you, and then maintains it every year as though you were an employer.
Well, how do they individualize the plans for people? I mean, if you said, well, I'm going to be a note investor, I don't want anything to do with physical real estate, then would they like tailor it more toward being more of a note owner for the plan documents, or?
You know what? That's a great question, and I have absolutely no idea what the difference would be. And it's Seth did a survey of the class and asked how many people actually even read their plan documents. And I think not even John had read the plan documents. And Seth was pointing out a case where the IRS audited, or not the IRS, the state of Arizona where he's located, their finance division audited him, and the department that's in charge of their plan documents hadn't even read his plan documents. So that's a great question. You'd have to ask him. I don't know.
So did Seth interview you prior to opening this, getting this account?
Oh yeah, no, he knows exactly what I do, and just wanted a real good feel for for what it was and what was important to me and things like that. But to answer Tom's question, I can't tell you exactly what he did or what he put in there because, frankly, I haven't read it.
Oh, you haven't read it? Okay, cool.
No.
Got it. Cool.
But it's not boilerplate language, because from what Mike was telling me is that, they don't like the QSRP or whatever it is, because that is templated stuff. And they believe that people need an individualized, tailored plan document for their needs, right?
I'm not allowed to say.
Oh, okay.
Jay, it's a free country. For a little bit longer, you can say whatever you want.
Okay, well, I think we did a webinar with them, and I was on that webinar and I asked some questions, and when I didn't get I thought I did not get direct answers to direct questions, the hair on the back of my neck went up, and it's just then I did a follow-up call and I asked the same questions. It did not get those direct answers, and I just said nope, not for me.
Okay.
So, and I can't tell you what those questions exactly were, but it was just simple, basic stuff. And it's just, so I think what they did is cookie cutter, and I'm just,
Yep.
I'd run fast, run hard, run deep.
Yeah. Well, good stuff, guys. I appreciate everybody chipping in here. That's what makes this group so cool. Does anybody else have any questions or things that they wanted to bring up before we exit? There is not going to be a call next Thursday. I just want to make sure that everybody's aware of that. I will send another email out just to remind everybody. And if you have any questions or things while we're offline, please go ahead and feel free to send me or Julie an email, or both of us, Mike@noconference.com. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Oh, wait. You know what? I wanted to discuss your note real quickly.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, you still have a few minutes? I know it's getting late here.
I do.
Yeah, okay, great. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you have going on, Sachin?
So the whole motivation was I've been doing a lot of theory stuff and hadn't invested anything and hadn't dirtied my hands, so to speak. So I went ahead and bought 2 second lien non-performing notes in Cook County, Illinois. That's where I live too. So I said, okay, how bad can it get from here? Kind of thing. So I'm just in the initial process, and I spoke to a couple of you guys too in the group. And thank you for all your guidance and help that you guys have given me. And we're just in the early process, wired the money, bought them from Keyhole Financial, Sherman. And yeah, it's very initial time and it's exciting. It's just a new journey starting. I look forward to it.
Yeah, cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to case study these two notes from seed to harvest, and we're going to walk you guys through this thing as though they are notes that are your own. So when did you wire the funds?
Last Wednesday. And I didn't chase Sherman for a couple of days. I just forgot I was doing something else. And then 2 days back, I started chasing him. And so he sent me a couple of questions back and as to who the servicing company would be. And that's what decided today to go with Madison. I've been interacting with Madison most of the day today, second half. And so I'm going to board these loans with them. So yeah, about a week back.
Have you been in touch with Madison yet?
Yes.
I missed
So
that part. Okay, cool.
I am, and so I'm busy loading documents and signing documents with Madison.
Okay, great. All right. So like I said, we're gonna keep this thing alive in this group so everybody can hear the progress. So Keyhole was looking for transfer information from Sachin. They wanted to know who the servicing company will be, what their 800 number is, what's their hours of operation, and what's the 800 number that will be used so that the borrower can contact us so that they can create their goodbye letter. So in a goodbye letter, it has all the information. Hey, it's been nice not working with you. We're selling this loan to another company, and here's the other company's information, and you're no longer our borrower. And now Sachin will provide that information so that that letter can be created, and then Madison Management will create the hello letter and say, hey, Keyhole Financial is no longer your servicer. We're Madison Management, and here's our phone number, our hours of operation. If you've been in bankruptcy, this call is for informational purposes only, blah, blah, blah. And they'll get that letter off to them. That is not a certified letter. That is just using regular mail. It's a formality from RESPA, which is the, you can look up RESPA, RESPA, RESPA guidelines. Everybody should be familiar with all this stuff. RESPA is there for the protection of the borrowers. RESPA has quite a few different laws, truth in lending, and they are there to make sure that the borrowers get the right information and the loans transfer correctly, etc. And so the next step for Sachin now is to gather all the information for Madison Management. And what I recommend everyone do, even though you're using a servicing company, is to plot the loan yourself. Meaning, here's the statement that Madison Management is going to send out to the borrower. I disagree. I think that the balance is X, and I think that the due date is this, and you need to follow along every step of the way as Madison Management gets more involved. Meaning, now Sachin is going to find out very quickly what it's like to service a servicer, what it's like to manage a servicing company, and all the nuance that it takes to make sure that they do things correctly. Servicing company is nothing more than a vendor. A vendor is nothing more than a tool to get the job done. And we deal with vendors all the time, whether it's people supplying credit reports, whether it's servicing companies, whether it's attorneys going through foreclosure process. You need to be on top of them like nobody's business. It's a big job. It's a little frustrating at times because you feel like you're kind of at an arm's length, and you tell them to do one thing and they do something else, and then you find out 2 weeks later. I had some loans out at a servicing company, and I found out that these were all I had 10 non-performing notes out, put them into a servicing company early on. And one of the companies had built out on their website. Let's see, how did this happen? They built out on their website where the borrower can go right to the website and start making payments. Well, you know that I like to get a down payment of, like that one note that I told you about, of $3,000 down before you can start making payments. Well, the website was not set up that way. They didn't tell me that they had this feature and that my loan was part of this website. And so two of the borrowers in the middle of the night or whatever went onto the website and started making their monthly payment without making any downstroke.
Bastards.
And so typically I'd be happy when I find money in my bank account. And I looked the first month and I'm like, why did they? And these two borrowers did at the same time, which was, I would have put it together if it was just one borrower. The amount of payments I kind of had memorized from these 10 notes. And one of them was like 425 or 427. It was a wacky number. And I would have recognized, but these two borrowers started making payments in April at the same, it's freaky. They had sent, it was their off of the first statement that the servicer had sent them. And it totaled up to like $689 and some crazy. I'm like, where did that come from? And so I let it go. And then the next month they did it again. And I remembered to get in touch with Madison. And they're like, uh-oh. It looks like these borrowers started making monthly payments because I added this feature to the website. I mean, it's shit like that it just drives you nuts. It's like, dude, you just blew my whole game here. And
Mike, can you ask who the servicer was on that?
No. It's not a free country anymore. And so that happened. And so it's things like that. There's no way that I could have been on top of that. There's just, there's just no way. There's just no way I could have been on top of that.
Unless you knew who the servicer was and you could avoid using them.
Well, the servicing companies were, so that was FCI. And it was a new feature for them. I guess their IT guy goes, hey, look, I got this thing up and running, and they just left it on. And in the middle of the night, these guys just went and made payments. I think it was FCI. And we'll cut this part out of the recording. So, yeah, things like that. And so I was telling Sachin today, I want to tell all of you as well. Any correspondence from the servicer to the borrower, any correspondence from the servicer to the foreclosing attorney must absolutely, positively be sent to you as a draft. And then you can go over the numbers. I'm talking about a copy of the demand letter. I'm talking about a copy of the hello letter. I'm talking about every communication that leaves the servicer goes and gets reviewed by the investor. Another thing, what did Mary tell me to do? With billing, with the invoicing, and with monthly payments, from Madison, we get our loans all come, they do not come in as itemized. Remember, I told you that these 2 loans the payments came in. You need to have an itemized, like, I don't know how many loans we have at Madison, and they just send us a big check. And it's like, can't you just tell me that the Jones and the Smiths and the Applebee's all paid, in full? Did they pay in partial? Because now I have to sit there and break it down. There's just so many. It's a big job, and I'd rather you get a taste of it early on so that you may come up with some alternative options to using a servicing company in the future. But no better way to learn than trial by fire. Like you said, get your hands dirty.
Well, I'm finding it today itself. They have asked me to put the loan data in an Excel sheet. It's such a laborious work, and I have to look at note. I have to look at a lot of documents to punch in that data into Excel. I'm like, if God forbid, if I had the whole tape, I would die doing this.
Yeah, it's a big job. And they leave it to the investor to supply that information, or else, I'm getting another alert here, or else I think they will do it for you. Oh, yeah. We're getting into the thick of it here.
Hey, Sachin, do you mind sharing with the group? I think it would be really helpful. What you bought, like UPBs, what you paid for them, that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, I don't mind. I'm just
Very cool. Yeah, we'll do that when we meet again. So what we're going to do, Sachin and I are going to sit down and go through this collateral file, go through any type of pay history that we can get our hands on, et cetera, to recreate the amortization to figure out where we are with the arrears, and try to come up with a next payment due date, all that fun stuff that we can give to Madison Management, so that all the information that will be needed to create the demand letter, because with these servicing companies, they want to use the attorneys that they're familiar with. Unfortunately, Sachin is connected with me, and I have a favorite Illinois attorney already, which we already talked to prior to buying this note, just to get a feel for, just to give Sachin a feel for what he's getting into with Cook County, Illinois. And so we had a nice conversation with the attorney. And so we're going to be completely transparent on this thing for everybody's experience. So good job, Sachin. That's cool.
Yeah, Jay, it was fine for the group. It was quick. There were 2 loans. Total unpaid balance is $31,000, and I paid 30 cents for this.
Oh, cool beans. Good job.
So like 16,000 a piece. Is that something like that? 15
Yeah.
or 16 UPB a piece.
Yes.
Nice low buck loans.
Congratulations.
But the process is the same, whether it's a 16,000 UPB or a 200,000 or a $400,000. It's the same foreclosure process. It's the same documents that the servicer sends to the borrower. It's the same loan documents that come in as the collateral file. The collateral file is a collateral file. Sometimes the collateral files come in, they're a little bit thin, meaning documents are missing. I think of the first company I was buying notes from. I'd open up the folder and I'm like, man, this thing is light. Open up a folder and there's nothing in there. The lost note affidavit, a copy of the mortgage, which is basically useless. You can get that off the county records. And that was it. No assignments or anything. So no pay history. Absolutely no pay history. Back in the gunslinging days, we never had pay histories. In some that was the main reason I think we called my attorney, right, Sachin, is to see if we could do
Right.
business without a
Yeah,
history.
there's no pay history on both these loans. So
I'm sorry.
there is no pay history for both the loans.
Okay.
So we'll have to, go and create our own.
Yeah. Well, we're going to go back to Keyhole and we're going to bust their chops and make them go back to PNC. These are PNC loans, I believe.
One is PNC and one is Southern Trust, which is now Tourist merged with BB&T.
What's the company?
Southern Trust Bank.
Southern Trust.
Yeah.
Got it.
Hey, Sasha, I assumed you bid on more than just those two?
Oh yeah, in fact, third one, we agreed on the price, and then next day morning he tells me I sold it for a higher number. I'm like, okay.
Thank you very much, right?
Yeah.
But he didn't come back to you and say, hey, I just got this offer.
No, so I had offered so it's like, it's like very flea market negotiation. This was an experience too. So went back and forth on the third. So he said he started 18,000. I said, no way for that specific loan. Then he comes around and says, can you buy this for 7,500? I said, let me look at the DD files and I'll come back to you. And so I told him 6. Then he said, okay, I'll do 6,500. I said, done deal. And then he comes around and says, I got 7,500 from somebody. I said, good for you.
Oh, man.
But you wasted my DD time. I was not happy about that. But other than that, it was okay. Because that was also in Cook County. So my whole thing was, if I'm going to go to the lawyer, I might as well go with 2 files, 3 files, or whatever. Then I looked at some loans at PaperStack. They're very highly priced there. It's like 50 cents and above. It just doesn't make sense.
Well, that's right. We looked at that one. It was completely no way, right?
Mhm.
First was well on their way to foreclosure sale. And they were trying to take it to sale April of 20, right?
Mm-hmm.
They were trying to take it to sale April of 20. COVID shut it down. So those guys are waiting for.
But I don't know why didn't they foreclose? Foreclosures are open. It's just that you can't evict, but
Well,
foreclosures are open.
I heard from another bank. They're like, we could foreclose. This was a Florida note where we own the second, and the first did start foreclosure. And we were well on our way to foreclosure sale. And we got the notice that this first was in foreclosure. And so I called the first. I'm trying to think who the heck it was. It was not a big bank. I'll get you the name next week. It doesn't really matter. But I called them up and I said, hey, listen, we're in the process of foreclosing. We'd be willing to share information with you regarding this foreclosure. Because we were foreclosing from second position, this would be a subject to for anybody who ended up with the house. And she said, this is the attorney for the bank. She said, well, we're waiting for the federal moratorium to be lifted. Even though we can foreclose in Florida, state by state, we're going to wait for the federal just because this bank would feel more comfortable doing that. And I'm like, okay, fine. Just letting you know, we're going to sale at, when did we go to sale? In April or something. So we ended up going to sale. The bidding, they outbid our strike price, so we got paid in full. And now it's the investor that ended up with this thing at the foreclosure sale to deal with this bank. She was pleasant enough, but they were moving pretty hard and strong towards foreclosure, but they wouldn't actually perform the sale, which was due to their decision not to go against the federal guidelines for the moratorium. And that's, I can see why. I can see their point. They just did not want to be, they weren't as aggressive as we were. in their foreclosure process. So that was a good one. That was a good lesson. And we got paid in full. So yes, we will keep you updated on this deal. I think we might even create a little section in the website so you can kind of track along. Remember, we're switching over eventually to trulypassive.com instead of the Thinkific educational platform. So start poking around in there if you want to make some posts. I'd love to see some action in there. I plan on having a good group of people in there once I want to go live with this thing. And so good job, Sachin. That's good. I'm glad you just jumped in, both feet in the water. Get her done.
Yeah, I hope so. The journey goes off well.
All right, folks.
I actually also went down to the house, both the places, and saw them. They were occupied. There was lights on. So I'm like, okay, I went in the evening so that I could see if the lights are on.
Wow, that's great. That's the way you want them.
Yeah.
Second mortgage, you want the people to be in the house. You want them to be in love with the house. Your kids grew up in the neighborhood, and they know the neighbors, and they don't want to leave. And what'll it take for Sachin to go away?
And I was worried about one note that is on 93rd Street here in Chicago, which is like deep south. So, but the area is good. Thankfully, the area was good.
Oh, good. Good. You can help a family. Okay, folks, have a great night and keep in touch.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, all.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.